listening to You Would Think, the Philadelphia Flyers podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Collington, and we have a lot of playoffs to talk about today. Joining me, as always, is the one and only Mr. Kevin Durso. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's nice to watch quality hockey, isn't it?
It is. Have you recovered decently since last time we were on?
I have recovered decently. Yeah, I was hurting last show. My symptoms disappeared a couple days later. It was just kind of flu-like for a couple days. Thank goodness, nothing too bad, and nobody else really got sick, and everybody's pretty happy and healthy. So, thank you for asking, though.
Yeah, I meant to do it before we started recording, but we kind of got on this thing and started chatting about what we were gonna do. So
absolutely, and I'm very excited about what we are gonna do, and what we are gonna do is talk about some playoff hockey.
Yes. So we've got this. Here's our next number.
Yep. Round one is just about over. Time of recording, there is one game left. It will be a game 7 that we'll talk about shortly.
There's one game left in round 1, and round 2 is underway. All right, so realistically, depending on when you're listening to this out there, there's one game completed at the time of recording. There are going to be 2 more probably when you're listening, because like for the most part, if you're listening to this on the Monday, like usual,
right,
or at least we hope like usual. Look, if you're not listening to it after the first day it's out, then that's on you.
Yeah, we miss enough news as it is. You don't need to make it any harder on yourself.
So by this point, what is it? The Central Series is starting on Sunday, and the West Series is starting on Sunday. We actually also, by the way, we do know as of late last night, following the North Division games and knowing where that stands, the North Division second round will begin on Wednesday.
Okay. They do have that.
There is a little bit of it's a little bit of a weird schedule. I'll pull it up really quick just to do the couple of quick days, because you'll see quickly how it balances out. Because for the most part, the goal is 2 games per day.
Right.
So Sunday there's 2 games. Monday there are 2 games, one of which is still the first round.
Right.
Then Tuesday there's only 1.
Okay.
Wednesday at the moment it says only 1, but that is because they are not going to put the North
the North Division
game. They don't put North round
that day,
right? And so will the West game 2.
Okay.
And then by the time you get to Thursday, you have both the East and Central playing in game 3. Friday you will have game 3 of one series of the West, game 2 of the North. And basically, by the time you get to I think this is what it is. On Sunday the 6th, so next Sunday, a week from today, Colorado and Vegas are going to play in Game 4 of their series. And I believe that there's an easier way for me to look this up because I actually wrote it in with the North games. I just wrote North Division, whatever. Because there's it is Sunday, Monday. Sunday and Monday is a back-to-back for the North.
Right, and they're doing that to try to catch them up still.
They are doing it they're doing it exactly to catch them up, because from that point on, that Monday is game 4 of the North Division with game 5 of the East. Tuesday is game 5 of the Central and West. And then you're kind of back on this track where the only game that is off by a hair is the North Division, which is 1 game behind the others.
Yeah, but then you're within the margin of correction.
Which literally means that one day after 2 potential game 7s in the West and Central is when the North game 7 would be. And if the North goes 6 or less, it will end no later than the same time a game 7 for the East would be.
Oh, so it all works out pretty well.
So it works out that the last possible day of the second round is 2 weeks from today.
Well, and that works out really well because our next show also comes out 2 weeks from today, and we'll be back to talk about the Eastern and Western Conference Finals. We got to reseed the Final Four. Like, that's when things really get exciting. But we do have some first-round series to talk about, and we're going to start with the one that is still ongoing. Saturday night, man, this series is crazy because the last 2 games, games 5 and game 6, Montreal had a multi-goal lead in the third period. In game 5, it was 3 goals. In game 6, it was 2 goals. Toronto came back and tied the game in both instances just to lose in overtime. Game 5 in 59 seconds. Game 6 a little later on, but still just as devastating. Toronto goes from 3-1 to 3-3, and there's a game 7 in Toronto on Monday night. Kevin, talk me through We also had fans at Bell Center last night. Talk me through that, and talk me through how Montreal has climbed back into this series, even when it looks like they've tried to throw it away.
I can't say much for the regulation portions of those games because Montreal just kind of, I don't want to like game 6. It was definitely the Carey Price effect. Like Carey Price was outstanding. So it leads up to when you get to the third period of that game, it's still scoreless. You need a goal possibly. Like honestly, I think one goal felt significant. The second one that came on the 5-1, I mean, talk about a series, like the whole series of unfortunate events.
Brutal.
You get on the Montreal's on a power play, so I'm trying to get back to that. So they're on a power play after a near miss on the other end. I believe it was a goalie interference call. They score right away. Challenge for goalie interference. Don't win it, which they shouldn't have won it, by the way. It was a good goal.
Classic Flyers move right here.
But it was a good goal. I don't see what the problem with that was. So good goal. Now you take a penalty for delay a game. Before you can blink, Mitch Marner takes a delay a game penalty for throwing the puck over the glass. So now you have a 5-on-3 for Montreal. They go and score on that as well. And honestly, at 2-0, I thought the game was not over, but like you're sitting here going, oh my goodness, they're in the driver's seat. 13 minutes left. This is going to 7.
Yep.
And they get one, they get another. There's 3 minutes left. And then it was that, I won't say it was a chess match, but like that overtimes, it felt weird in the playoffs right now. I mean, like with more guys on the ice, I know that's a little tougher.
There's been a lot of them.
Yeah. So Montreal gets going, and finds it, and Montreal didn't really do well in that overtime, to be honest with me. Austin Matthews nearly scored a great goal on his backhand on a play that looked like nothing was going to happen. And
he does that a lot.
Yeah, I know. And yet, so I'm going back to check really quick because if I'm not mistaken, did I read correctly somewhere? That was Montreal's second shot of overtime.
Yep.
They got outshot 13-2.
Yep.
There was every reason to believe that Toronto was going to win that game and that series right then and there.
I'm not gonna lie, I feel for Toronto fans right now because that's a game
because you're thinking it again.
You can't lose that. The team that comes back from the multi-goal lead in the third period always wins the game in overtime. Always. If they're the Boston Bruins, they win with 50 seconds left in regulation. But they always, always, always win the game when you come back from a multi-goal lead in the third period. And now twice in 2 games where you can clinch the series, you blow it. Oh, man. It's tough to come back from that, man. And when you have to saddle up and play a Monday night game now, and you got to play Game 7, man, it's going to be hard.
I don't think it's tough to come back from the previous game as much as like Game 5 I'm talking about. It shouldn't have been anyway, because Game 5 was a wash. Like Game 5, not a wash, but like you make a dumb play. I mean, you just flat out make a dumb play, less than a minute in overtime, and the game's over because they get a 2-0 out of a turnover.
Yep.
This is tougher to come back from because it was more methodical. This took 15 minutes.
Yep.
You're waiting for something to break, and again, it's a turnover.
And they were pushing, like you said, 13-2 shots in overtime. Like they were pouring it on the Montreal Canadiens.
Now, granted, the common theme, or what I keep hearing anyway, is it sounds like they are looking at the start of this game, and even though they were still in it going to the third,
right,
they keep coming back to the start of the game and going,
the start was bad.
We weren't ready. Right. And if that's the way you feel, then how do you get out of your head that this is happening again?
Right. At one point, I think Montreal was up 10-1 shots in the first period. Like it was a poor start out of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I know there's a lot of talk in Toronto about their big guns not showing up. Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner better bring the big boy skates on Monday night.
Yeah, kind of, honestly.
Or it's gonna be a long summer.
Yeah, that's for sure. I wanted to get into something about Toronto specifically because I want to say keep getting surprised, but okay. I wanted to check before I said this because I didn't want to be incorrect about it. Do you know who's leading the Toronto Maple Leafs in goals in the playoffs right now?
Is it Zach Hyman?
No, actually, Zach Hyman only has 1.
Oh, does he? Okay. Who is it?
Okay, maybe not so much of a surprise. I was going to say it was a surprise, but William Nylander has
Okay.
4.
Yeah, he's been excellent.
Do you know who's second?
Oh no. Morgan Riley.
Not bad. He only has 1 as well. There's okay. In fairness, by the way, for you to be guessing these
Is
names,
the number 2? Like they have 2 goals.
no, it's 3.
Okay.
But there's only 3 players with 2 or more in the series, though. So if that makes it any easier, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that you could be guessing
Right.
a lot of people. Like Morgan Riley is not a bad guess to say, oh, what a surprise. He's second in goals in this round.
That's fair.
But he's got 1 like half of his teammates. Like there's no difference between him or TJ Brody or Zach Hyman, who you've mentioned.
All right. So who is it?
Jason Spezza.
Jason Spezza.
I cannot believe the kind of series he's having, to be honest.
I'm not going to say he looks like Ottawa Senator Jason Spezza because that's
Oh, that's what he's reminding me. No, he's reminding me of it, though.
He certainly looks very good. That team, there are some players on that team who have turned back the clock. Like we're talking about the young kids not really producing. Matthews, Marner, Nylander has been.
So who's the all right, so who's the other player
Joe Thornton.
Who has more than 1 goal?
Oh, no. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking the other player who looked like he's turned back the clock because it certainly looks like Joe Thornton.
Oh, no. There's only one other guy. So then who's the other guy who has more than 1 goal for Toronto in the series?
Okay, so this is my only guess. It's not Wayne Simmons, is it?
It is not. Wayne Simmons does not have a goal.
Not yet. He will.
I wouldn't be surprised.
If the Montreal Canadiens lose this game, Toronto goes through, Wayne Simmons will score a big goal at some point. And he might do it tomorrow night. He might do it Monday night.
Yeah.
But Wayne Simmons will score a big goal at some point in this playoff run. Believe you me. And you know it's 100% true.
That's your take.
That's my hot take of the day. Absolutely.
Now we'll all be glued on Monday night to see if Wayne Simmons scores a big goal.
So real quick, who you got in Game 7?
Oh, did you want me to give who the other guy was first?
Oh, yeah.
Jake Muzzin.
Okay.
No, but here's the reason I'm bringing it up. Okay, Nylander's not maybe a huge surprise, but Jason Spezza, who is 37 years old.
84.
Okay, Broad's joke is 94 when we do open ice hits. He called him he said 94-year-old Jason Spezza. And so last show I brought that back and then turned around and said, so how old is Joe Thornton if Jason Spezza's
104?
I said he's his jersey number. I gave him 97,
okay.
But that's fine. But the point I'm making is that, okay, so your top 3 scorers in the playoffs so far are William Nylander, which is fine. Nylander's had a great
top
series.
Top 6, power play 1.
Right.
Yeah, go for it.
But Jason Spezza and then Jake Muzzin and then a bunch of guys with 1. Austin Matthews is at 1. Mitch Marner is at the same number that Wayne Simmons has.
Not good enough.
And I mean, and look, pass to John Tavares, obviously, who lasted half of a game.
Yeah, that situation. Whew.
But the other two, I mean, Joe Thornton has a goal in this series. Mitch Marner does not.
Yep. It's not good enough.
Alex Galchenyuk has a goal in this series. Mitch Marner does not. You know?
And
that's not me trying. And I'm not trying to pick on those guys, but at the same time, welcome to the playoffs because, I mean, I guess I'll answer your previous question really fast because then I'm going to hit the button to go to the next series because it's all going to be in the same conversation. Like it's literally the same story to an extent.
Yep.
So, boy, this is tough. I'm going to look. I'll stick to my guns because I made the prediction I did however many weeks ago. So I'll say Toronto wins it because I had Toronto in 6. It very well could have gone that way. It didn't. I'll take Toronto in 7 in this case. I will say this. I've written down predictions for the other, like for the second round series, except for the Toronto, Montreal, Winnipeg series. Whoever gets there, and whoever plays, and I'm still not going to do it because I'm having second thoughts about what I originally thought.
I'm gonna say this. I also picked Toronto a couple of weeks ago when we did our playoff predictions. I'm out. Carey Price ain't losing this game.
Okay. The only reason that I am is now you have to go from even just in that small sample that it was. You have to go from building with fans to building with no fans. I think it's harder to get up.
I think that's fair, but
that is literally the only reason.
Man, I don't know who that favors though. I don't know who that jarring shift favors. Right? We've seen Matthews and Marner look uncomfortable.
I still think there's something about the familiarity in your own building. Like, it's taking me back to the comeback they made against Columbus before they ended up losing the series anyway, where it's like you're down against it. That game was in Toronto, and you find a way to pull stuff out, you know?
And then you still found a way to lose the series.
Here's kind of also why I'm leaning this way. Montreal cannot afford, I don't think, another game like this one. I don't think you can afford another nothing into the third period type of game where, or in that vein where you're relying on Carey Price to allow one or fewer.
Okay.
I don't think you can rely on that. I think that, you know, if you go out and you score 2 or 3 right away, like you did in Game 5, you're going to totally change my mind. But I feel like that was the game we got in Game 6. No scoring. They do get a lead. When they did get a lead by that point, with the way the time was, it looked like they could rely on it. There've been too many strange bounces in this game, or in this series, I should say.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying, but the longer a game is 0-0,
I guess the more it favors the better goalie.
Right. I'm looking at the two goalies and who's going to crack. Carey Price is rock solid.
I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. I
wouldn't be surprised by Jack Campbell standing on his head and making 65
saves.
Good.
Yeah,
and they win 1-0 in double overtime. Like, I'm certainly not going to be surprised either way. I just hope it's a better Game 7 than Vegas gave us, but we'll talk about that later.
Bros even texted me the same thing. He goes, that was boring.
Here's
the thing. I did not think the opening 20 was boring.
Right. No, me neither.
The first period was like, oh, look, Vegas scored. Okay. And then it was, look at this late goal by Minnesota. We got a game here.
We'll talk about this in the Vegas series.
I know.
We got to stay on topic here. We're going to get lost. Here forever.
Is that it then? Are we done with this one? We moving on?
Who you got in Game 7? You got Toronto. I'm going to take Montreal. I'm going to ride the hot hand.
I'm sticking with Toronto, but only because, like I said, I think that here's honestly the truth. All it's going to take is a goal by Toronto to go up 1-0 in the first 10 minutes. And I feel like I don't want to say that means that doesn't mean they're winning, but that indicates to me that it might be a 4-3 kind of game. And I don't know that I want Montreal in a 4-3 type game.
If flip side, a Montreal goal in the first 10 minutes might break the Leafs directly in half. It breaks the Leafs directly in half. Especially if Carey Price looks good. Montreal in 7. Either way, the winner of that game will go on to face the Winnipeg Jets, for some reason, who are not only in the second round, but have the benefit of a long rest after sweeping the Edmonton Oilers.
Depending on who you ask, that's not a benefit, but okay.
Well, sure. They get the technical benefit of a long rest.
Okay, because without trying to jump too far ahead.
Right.
There's another series that has the exact same scenario, a team that swept and a team that had to play 7. And I forget where I saw it. It's been bouncing around on Twitter before. Someone has put it out there that the teams that play the 7-game series have tended to win the follow-up over the team that sweeps.
Right. Now I don't know if that's the case round 1 or round 2.
I don't think that's the case in this series. I think that could be the case in a series like this, I should say. Okay. I don't think that's the case in the other one because I think there's too much talent. I think you're just putting too many good players on the ice at the same time for it to be one way or the other. Like, I can't be surprised by that result. Like I think you need to look at it and go, I'm going to be surprised if the team that swept gets beat by the team that played the 7-game series. There is none in the other series when we get to that one. There's 2 really good teams. This is a little bit different because this is weird. Winnipeg wasn't supposed to be here, and I swear I think the only reason they're here is because of the fact that they were the underdog. Nobody gave them a shot. Here they are. Look at where they are.
Let's not say that's the only reason. I think the other reason they're here
is goaltending.
Is that Mike Smith is the starting goaltender for the Edmonton Oilers.
I can't pin the whole thing on him, but yes, I think that's a factor.
I think that is I think the franchise has continued once again to fundamentally fail Connor McDavid.
Now, I would agree that you need to put as much talent around him as possible, and you're not doing the best job of it.
You don't need, even if you can't put as much talent around him as possible, because I get the salary cap exists, and you have some bad deals from Ken Holland and or from Peter Chiarelli, and Ken Holland's doing the best. I get that. Get him a starting goalie. Get him a starting goalie.
Oh, aren't you technically paying 2 of them?
Yeah, and you went out last summer and you couldn't get, who are they going after last summer that they couldn't get?
Oh God,
Calgary.
Markstrom. Yeah.
Markstrom. They were heavy after Markstrom. They couldn't get Markstrom. They got Mike Smith. Not good enough. Not good enough. Trade somebody. Get a better goalie than Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen, who you're paying $3 million a year or $4 million a year, whatever it is, for the next eternity, because you let your GM sign a contract 2 days before you were firing him. But whatever. That's a whole nother organizational failure in Edmonton. Either way, you have now gotten swept out of the first round. You have lost in the first round.
6 playoff games in a row.
Yep. You have lost. You have not gotten out of the first round in more than 3 years. You are wasting Connor McDavid, and you will be lucky if he finishes this contract with you.
Yeah.
Like, at a certain point, at what point do you pull a Jesse Puljujarvi and just say, nah, I'm going to Europe? Say it. Like,
for what it's worth, by the way, I'm glad you brought his name up because I think he's gone.
I think so too.
I think that they don't, and I don't think it's like he was an okay player in that series. He had some moments. I'm saying I don't think they want him there anymore.
I think that relationship is so rotten.
Exactly. I think there's something not right here, and he's going to go somewhere else, and he probably will have a decent career, honestly.
Jesse Puljujarvi for Nolan Patrick. Who says no?
At the Edmonton Oilers.
Edmonton says no. Yeah, I know.
And that's saying something when that's an Edmonton, or when it's an
Nolan Patrick and a second. I would do it. Sorry, we're not staying on this. Either way, Winnipeg. I don't know how they did it.
I'll tell you how they did it.
I know the answer is Connor Hellebuck.
It's half him.
Okay, what's the other half?
Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, and Nikolai Ehlers.
Yeah.
Because those 3 showed up in a massive way.
Yep. You talk about Toronto Stars not showing up. Winnipeg didn't have that problem.
But Winnipeg got goals in these games to some extent. Like, they didn't score a ton. Let's be real. I mean, one of the games was a 1-0 win in overtime.
Yeah, it was wild.
And some of these games, like, they scored 9 goals over the last 2 games because they had to. They were 1-goal games where they literally almost had to fight back for everything to make it happen. But they win game 1, and I'm sorry. Who's scoring these goals again? Tucker Poolman? Yep. Dominic Toninato? Like, who are these guys to be scoring these big goals? Like, and that's a good thing because that means that you're a team with depth, but it's like, didn't expect that. Not in game 1, right? Seriously, game 1. And then even game 2. Game winner is Paul Stastny. Not that he hasn't scored big goals in his career, but it's like,
but he's playing down the depth chart.
Not the first name you think of. Right. And then really the comeback was keyed by your typical usual suspects. Ehlers scored the first goal. Matthew Perreault, Blake Wheeler, Josh Morris. He's been your top defenseman this year. Ehlers again in overtime. And then you get to game. Well, and look at who scored in game 4. Okay, Mason Appleton's another one. Mason Appleton's another one of those depth guys that you're going who, but Mark Scheifele had a pair. And then Kyle Connor scores in overtime.
Triple overtime.
Like, by the way, for what it's worth, look, this possibility obviously still exists because there are going to be games in the next round that start at 10 o'clock at night. But that was really the first after dark game we've had.
That was late.
Was late, but it was fun.
It was fun.
You're kidding yourself if you didn't sit there last Monday night and try to make it through that.
No, I went to bed because I was still shaking it off a little bit, but
that's fair. No, for you it's different. Don't get me wrong. Literally yesterday I had that, like, not that feeling, but I had like one of those, geez, I'm a little run down today. I think I'm gonna like sleep as much as I can kind of days. So
Winnipeg makes it through.
And this is the way they've made it through is like I said, in the way that Toronto is struggling. If Toronto would have won that series in 5 or 6. Then I probably would have sat there and said, I still think Toronto's the better team, and Winnipeg, it could get interesting, but I don't think Winnipeg's going to pull this off. Now I'm second guessing everything in that.
Toronto's made it shaky enough that no matter who gets through, Winnipeg's got to feel like they have a chance.
And you know what? Give me mass chaos. Give me the mass chaos of Game 7 that's coming up. Give me mass chaos in the next series. I jokingly mentioned, and look, this is impossible now, but I jokingly mentioned that for the scenario that I gave previously about the second round that you could only dream of from individual matchups and their teams.
Yep.
What would happen if the final four was something crazy like, and it can't happen because at least two of the teams are out.
Right.
But what if it was the Islanders against Florida, against Minnesota, against Winnipeg? And like you're talking about four teams that A, nobody saw getting there, and B, that like you could, I mean, how many jokes are cracked? Maybe not Minnesota, but how many jokes are cracked about either the city
attendance.
or the fan base
Yep.
or whatever? Like exactly. And it's like, which by the way, it's really hard to say that because the Islanders have had some really great crowds. Montreal's crowd was outstanding. I loved seeing
Boston had their stadium fully open for game one
and you
of the
could
second
tell
round against the Islanders,
and you could tell
it was insane.
And by the way, that was
TD Garden right there.
You know what though? The Montreal one hit me harder because of the fact that like it's that shock factor of the first time.
Yeah, that was cool.
Like hearing a crowd like that in Boston didn't sound all that different from Carolina and Nashville and the way that they were getting down the stretch in their series.
Man, that anthem in Montreal. Come on. Did you catch that?
No, I didn't catch the anthem, but
nobody sang it. Fans did.
Okay.
The 2,500 fans, and you could tell.
But they were
all screaming it at the top of their lungs.
The thing that
you got to go look it up after this.
The thing that got me was there's video clips of, I guess it was Toffoli's goal and then Kokoniemi's goal in overtime.
The building goes nuts.
Ice level videos. So there's nothing. You're not getting any broadcast quality whatsoever other than it's like the people who pulled out their phones and filmed it at the game, right?
Right.
And the noise that was being made by just 2,500 people in that building. And I'm sure that like all these places when they were still doing even 5,000, you're pumping in a little bit of noise because you want to make it feel fuller than what it is. But it was loud and you could hear real voices and it was nice to hear.
Those 2,500 sounded like 10,000 minimum. And it was absolutely fantastic to say. It really was.
There's almost, well, I guess this wouldn't be the case in Winnipeg specifically, but there's part of me that would love to see Montreal win the series so that 7 out of the 8 left are bringing fans into the building.
That would be cool.
You know, because it's becoming, and I said this on Open Ice Hits earlier this week. It's not that the bubble was a problem or that it didn't produce good games or anything like that, but it for what it was in the moment, what it had to be, it was perfectly done. It was done well. It was done very well. But this was missing. This was so missing, and
there's something special about it.
And you know what? In fairness, too, something that I at least wanted to bring up, and we look, we're a Flyers podcast. We don't have Flyers news really to get into right now. There hasn't been a lot going on. Yeah, but here's my point. We've had a lot of discussions over where do you go from here with the team, and how do you cure apathy and things like that, right? If you're not looking, and I guess I don't want to try to not say to segue too far over to different series and things like that, but if you're not watching, because we know Canada comes out for these things.
Absolutely.
If you're not watching Colorado, if you're not watching Carolina, if you're not watching Nashville and seeing how they pack them in Vegas, how they pack them in, and the energy inside of those buildings, you should be taking notes. You should be taking serious notes.
It's been a long time since we've seen buildings rocking, and it's good to see buildings rocking again. Like even with the limited fans, buildings would get loud, and you had some crowd and blah blah blah.
There's not a team. There's not a team left in the second round. I'm sorry, that made it through the first round. That's left in the second round that we're about to talk about. I'm having a rough one so far.
It's okay.
Talk about in the next little bit on the show.
Yeah.
Pick a division: West, Central, East. Doesn't matter. We're going to talk about all 3 of them coming up here. And there's not a team left in there that I probably haven't been able to make a comment on where I go, crowd's awesome. Listen to this place. Listen to the way these people are going nuts. I said it about Tampa when they were clinching. Both of them, Vegas and Colorado, have both been good. And then you just mentioned Boston, which is like, oh, yeah, look at what happens when Boston goes from 25% to
crank the dial up.
Right. I had already mentioned the Islanders because when the Islanders clinched, it was crazy.
Yeah, and I wonder if we look back postseason, I'm curious how much crowds mattered here, right? Like we saw it matter in Nashville. Like I'm convinced Nashville won those 2 games in Nashville because of that crowd, and we'll talk about that when we get there. but
It helps.
matters. It matters, and I'm pretty sure Montreal won that game last night because of that crowd, and we were kind of talking about it a little bit in the pregame. It's hard to lose that game.
There's a yes and no factor to me, though, because every game we're talking about, whether it's the two that Nashville won in Nashville or the one that Montreal just won in Game 6, these aren't games that didn't all three involved overtime, and all three kind of involved a team that was in front. Montreal played from in front. Nashville for a time played from in front. That they had to kind of come back from that.
Yeah,
and right. And as much as crowd noise and all that makes a difference, you have to be a good enough team to come out and win those games when your back is against the wall and Nashville had to know going into the series when the series shifted over. You got to win these games or it's over.
Yeah,
especially Game 3 for sure, but Game 4 too, just to make it even more of a series.
Right. Yeah, Game 3 wasn't a must-win, but it was kind of a must-win. And then Game 4, if you want to have a chance to realistically win the series, it's kind of still a must-win because going back to Carolina down 3-1 is a death sentence.
Well, are we done with the Winnipeg and Edmonton at this point?
Yeah, real quick, who you got in the next round? If Toronto makes it through and plays
Winnipeg.
I
already gave you my answer. I'm not.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, my answer was I don't have one yet until I know who's going.
Okay. Well, listen, I'm going to take the winner of the Toronto-Montreal series over Winnipeg no matter what.
All right, so here's where I'm at. I was leaning that direction, so to speak, because I firmly believed it was going to be Toronto. Even if Toronto wins, I'm not convinced.
Okay.
If Toronto even if Toronto wins the series, I think Winnipeg is sitting here waiting for something.
Okay.
And kind of knows what they're waiting for.
Well, speaking of things that we're waiting for, I have been waiting for this series, man, essentially since the divisional schedule got released in January. I looked at this Central Division, and went, top two teams there are probably going to be Colorado and Vegas. It sure would be nice if they met in the second round of the playoffs.
That came dangerously close to not happening.
It sure did. But here we are.
And there's
5 months later, and we got this series.
But there's a reason why it dangerously came close to happening, and it shouldn't have been this way.
No.
Well,
no.
Okay.
Minnesota was fantastic.
Okay, hold on a minute. So let me clarify that. It should have been this way because I really thought Minnesota was going to give Vegas a run for their money.
I think you predicted 6 or 7 games.
I said 7. Yeah. I said Vegas in 7, and I hit it on the nose with that one. There were a few I hit on the nose actually. I mean, if I'm going back,
I think you had Colorado in 4 or 5, didn't you?
Hold on. All right. So I struck out in the North because I had Edmonton in 6, which did not happen, obviously.
Listen, I don't think anybody outside of Manitoba had the Jets over the Oilers at all.
And in fairness, I had Toronto in 6. It could have been Toronto in 6. If it's Toronto in 7, I don't care. It's close enough.
You feel pretty good about that for sure.
If it's Montreal, I did not have Montreal, and apparently, but based on some of the things I've seen on Twitter, neither did a lot of other people who do what I do because, the
Leafs are a top 5 team in the league.
Have you seen the whole? Have you seen the ESPN staff?
No, but I believe it.
The ESPN staff did something where it was I think 3 people picked the Jets and nobody picked the Canadiens.
Well, no, because why would you, man? Whew.
And that was a list, and that was a list of about 15.
I know we're already off this series. People criminally underrate playoff carry price.
Yeah, they do. So for what
he's still good.
Yeah. All right. So for what it's worth, back to Colorado Vegas for a moment. Yes. So yes, the Vegas series I hit the prediction dead on. There are 2 others that I hit exact with the winner and game total.
Okay.
There's 2 others beyond that where I had the team right, not the games right, but I was in the ballpark.
Not bad.
And one that I don't feel so bad about being wrong. Obviously I sit there, I look at the Edmonton Winnipeg one and I go, yeah, I couldn't have been more wrong about that, but who saw it coming?
Nobody.
The other one I don't feel as bad about, and we'll get into it when we get to the East stuff, but that was one of the other ones I had wrong. So let's stick to Vegas.
Yeah.
It was a great series. I liked a lot about it. I didn't expect anything different from Minnesota, to be honest. I knew it was going to be a dogfight. It was going to be a tough series. It was going to be one of these,
If only Game 7 was better.
Do you want to know my honest opinion on that, to be honest with you?
Okay.
I think Game 7 went the way it did because it should have never gotten to a Game 7.
I agree. I think
Because
Minnesota expended
the
every
reality
ounce
of
of
the
energy they had.
But because of the reality of the situation was that Minnesota won Game 6, and they could have won Game 6 without this possibly. I'm not trying to say that they did or didn't, but the goalie interference non-call, or the goalie interference call that shouldn't have been called, that you forced the team that scored the goal to challenge to see if it was a goal, to only still say, no, you're wrong, now take a penalty, and they scored on the power play afterwards. That's wrong.
Yeah, it turns out officiating in the postseason is kind of rough.
And look, no, but we can sit here, but we can sit here and question we can question Toronto at that point and say, well, okay, the War Room says that's not a goal upon a challenge by the team that got scored on.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, that means that it's still a 1-0 game, no power play, and you're 12 minutes left in a game that's still really tight.
Right.
But it didn't go that way. Like, now you forced the team who scored the goal to... You force that team to go and say, well, no, we really think we scored a goal. We're challenging this. And then they lose the challenge. So you've changed it.
Yep. And you've seen
and it changed
officiating.
The whole, and then 30 seconds later, another goal. So it changed the whole complexion of that game. So that's why I don't look. I wanted a competitive Game 7 too, but I even said this on the last Open Ice Hits that I did with Broads. It's like there's no two better words. And this is why we're so excited about the other one. We're so excited about Toronto and Montreal because of the fact that was legitimately a good Game 6. It's been a good comeback for Montreal. We're excited about the fact that these two teams, we don't know what's going to happen, and we're expecting something crazy. And it's like, let's have fun with it because there's nothing wrong with the way it got here.
Right. And just real quick, touching on Colorado, St. Louis, that was just one good team severely outmatching a team.
This is okay. So this is to tie back to the North conversation,
right?
About a team that sweeps a series and a team that goes 7 and what happens.
Right.
This is one where I think it doesn't matter, and it's not going to matter anyway because this is 1 and 2 in the league.
Yep.
This is number 1 and number 2 in the league. So I expect anything in this series. Now,
to be fair, this year number 1 in the league does come with a little bit of a grain of salt because they got to beat up on the same teams. They all got to beat up on Anaheim. They all got to beat up on Arizona. They did,
but this is the 2 best, so it's like...
I understand, but they beat up on the same pool of teams. So best team in the league is a little tenuous this year because Carolina was right up there with them, and they played in a much better division.
Yeah, I mean, all right, so here's the thing, too. What I like is that because this feels a little bit like a division battle, like, it just determines who the best one is. Like, it doesn't matter when the 4 teams that come out of it. It's going to be culture shock one way or the other because you're seeing somebody you haven't seen all year.
I'm excited for that.
So the fact that the 2 best teams out of this division that also happen to have the most points out of any in the league from winning so often, whether it was playing great competition or not, they still won the most games.
Totally. Game 1s in the conference finals are going to be fun because it's teams that haven't seen each other in like almost 2 full years.
I'm still convinced that Game 1s in the conference final or they're calling it the semifinal, so we have to kind of try to get off of that. But
right,
I know what you mean. I'm having trouble with it myself, to be honest, because I've honestly let it slip that I say, whoever comes out of the East, and then I realize when I'm saying that I'm talking about the series going on right now.
Right.
Yeah, whoever comes out of the East, but. See, what I'm here for, truthfully, is I am here for the mass chaos of a Stanley Cup final that will never happen again.
Okay.
Meaning,
I like it.
you know what I mean. Meaning 2 teams that typically would play each other multiple times regular season and in the playoffs before the Cup final, meeting in the Stanley Cup final. So, like, I'm here for not this is the way I think it's going to. I don't think this is the way it's going to play out.
Right.
But I'm here for Toronto, Boston.
Carolina Islanders, something like that. Because that is technically possible here too.
I don't know about that one because.
Oh, how about Tampa, Boston?
I've said that one. Yeah,
that could be fun.
That would be fun.
Tampa, Boston, Toronto, Tampa. Any of those Atlantic teams.
Because here's the other thing about it. Like, do the math for a second and realize that there's not much left in terms. Like, there's going to be, no matter how you swing it, more Eastern Conference teams, traditional Eastern Conference teams than Western Conference teams.
Yep.
You've got Colorado, Vegas, and Winnipeg. That's it.
Yep.
You're getting another winner somewhere down on Monday night.
And
You're
Colorado
getting a winner.
and Vegas are going to take each other out.
Right. So you're going to and this is the irony of it. You could, in theory, get a Colorado or Vegas against Winnipeg matchup in the next round, and therefore it is essentially right. And then it is essentially an Eastern Conference, Western Conference showdown.
Well,
with one going to the Cup final from each side, but
let's stay on topic because we are trying to keep things kind of tight today.
We're doing okay so far. We're through 2 series.
Back to we have
because we're lumping these together, so it's a little bit blurry.
Yeah. Either way, Colorado, Vegas. Who you got?
I still stick to my original prediction. I've got Colorado. Let me see where
I just want this series to go 7.
I do have it going 7.
Yeah, if this series goes less than 6, I'm severely disappointed.
Yeah,
there's just going to be so much fun hockey.
If it goes less than 6, and I you know what? I even had somebody tweet this at me because I had someone tweet at me, whoever wins this series wins the cup, and to an extent, like I said, listen, I'll agree with you because I have Colorado winning the cup. I said that on our last show. That's who my pick was to win the cup. So yes, I actually believe that. If it goes less than 6, then how good is the team that wins it in 5? You know what I mean? Like either way, if Vegas comes out and
if somebody blows through this matchup, they're going to be very scary moving forward. Like if either team comes out and blows the door, if Colorado comes out and blows the doors off of Vegas,
right?
Do you want to play Colorado in the next round?
I wouldn't want to play Colorado after watching that first series, and that's not to say that like I get it. It was a mismatch. There's no question about it. Yeah. But at the same time, about the worst thing that could have happened is the fact that when did Colorado last play a game? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, but that
we're sitting here recording, they last played a week ago.
That shouldn't matter much past game 1, maybe the start of game
2.
I
know what I'm not saying it from a sense of that they couldn't win the game as a team.
Right.
I'm saying it from a sense of you had 3 guys who are really good hockey players rolling in that series. And now they kind of had to sit on the shelf for 10 or for 7 days.
That's fair.
That's the only reason. It has less to do with I don't think that they're going to come out and struggle as a team in game 1, but I want is it going to take a game before we get Nathan McKinnon back to what he was, putting up 5 goals in 2 games?
Does Nazem Kadri play in this series?
Wow. Well, how much? So, what was he so far?
Listeners up who may or may not have missed it. Nazem Kadri was suspended 8 games for absolutely braining Justin Falk. Justin Falk, right?
Yep.
Okay. Absolutely braining Justin Falk. It reminded me a lot of the Tom Wilson 20-game suspension hit on Oscar Sundqvist.
Ironically, the same team.
Right. It reminded me a lot of that hit, and Nazem Kadri, who everyone is aware has a little bit of a playoff reputation, got suspended like a repeat offender, even though he's technically not. Isn't it funny how that works?
My answer was he got suspended like somebody else should have, but that's
that's the comparison I'm drawing.
Well, we're past that because that guy's not playing hockey right now. So
right. Either way, Kadri got 8 games, which in the playoffs is an eternity.
All right, so
he
far
has served 2 of those games.
Okay, he served 2 and he's appealed it, which means that even if they cut it hang on a minute. Then I'll answer your question. Yes, he plays in this series. Because if it goes 7 games, he's in.
Well, if it goes 7 games,
which I think it might. Like I have it going 7, so yes, he'll play in the series in that regard. But also,
can you imagine? They go 6 games, they're tied, they're going to game 7.
I can see
Colorado
him,
gets to draw Kadri back in.
I can see him coming back for game 5.
Okay,
like
I
he served 4 more.
I could see him coming back for game 7 and getting himself suspended again.
I can't go that far with you. If he does anything close to being worthy of a suspension in game 7, done. He might not play another game in the league.
Right, he might. Yeah.
If it happens twice in 3 weeks, when you served a suspension for half of that, you know what I mean?
When you haven't completed a playoff series since the Toronto Maple Leafs lost to the Washington Capitals in, I think, 2015. I think that's the last time Nazem Kadri finished a playoff series. He got suspended twice against the Bruins.
Right.
Man. Either way, this is going to be a good series. and this is something that I'm very, very excited about. I am also,
if not for the fact that we're going to do another show in 2 weeks and be right back on with like, and 2 weeks is exactly when we said like there's only going to be one game left. I would say the series is still going to be going on when we do another show, but it's not because
it'll end. It should end.
It'll
like
end the day
night.
before.
Yeah, perfect. Absolutely perfect. So this is a series I've been excited about for a very long time. I talked about that.
Oh, yes.
But a series that I'm probably more excited about currently, just because, man, this is going to be a good series. Carolina, Tampa. Talk me through this. How'd we get here?
Did you give a pick for the other one?
Oh, I guess I didn't.
That's what I thought you were building up towards. And then,
oh, yeah, no. Oh, man. So I think it goes 7 games.
Okay.
Vegas has the home ice?
No, it's
Colorado has home ice. I think that's going to be the difference. I think Colorado in 7.
Yes, you're on my side. Cool.
And I'm not saying that because I think they're the better team. I think these teams are so razor close that it's a coin flip.
The reason why people believe that of these two teams, this could be the cup winner is because of the fact that if you can get through this one, you're already battle tested enough that you should be able to get through 2 more rounds. You know,
things are going to get crazy.
Nothing is a guarantee, but these two teams are loaded with talent.
Well, if you think about it, the team that comes out of Canada, like say Montreal wins, and you have Montreal Winnipeg, then the winner of this series is going to get to face that team no matter what.
We also still don't know, by the way, aside from not knowing one of the two teams that are going to play in that North Division final,
right?
We don't know what the procedure is following that series.
We don't, in terms of protocol and.
I think I know where we're heading with this because I don't think they're going to just sit there and say, "Hey, by the way, we can bring a team north of the border."
I think
two different times
is going to come over and just stay here.
Well, here's the thing: no matter who it seems to be at this point, it seems like a pretty safe bet that whoever that is will probably start on the road.
Yeah, just unless it's Toronto and right.
Unless it's something like Toronto, Tampa Bay,
right
in the middle, then yes, I think it's a pretty safe bet that the two teams will start on the road. If that's the case, then I don't see any reason why you couldn't pull the team below the border right away anyway. But it's the going back that's the thing. Like it's going back from another city. It's going back and saying another team has to come in and play.
And if it's the Montreal Canadiens, they're going to fight like hell. Because they're getting some gate. Well, either way, that is not a question we know the answer to.
No, but it's interesting. We don't know that yet. So I assume it's going to be
right. We may know the answer to that
here, but
by our next show. But one thing we will know the answer to by our next show is who wins the series between Tampa Bay and Carolina. Man, we touched on Carolina a little bit earlier. It took them 2 double overtime losses to get past Nashville. I think the last 4 games of that series went to overtime.
They did. And I'd say there's a difference for me because you had the 2 double overtime games and they lost both of them in Nashville and it evened the series and it totally changed everything for a little bit. And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, they won the next 2 games in overtime in less time than it takes to play a regulation normal regular season
quick.
overtime.
They were both in single.
They were within 3 minutes both times.
Right.
One was like 2:06 and the other one was like 1:30 something or something like that. Like it was quick. And I guess that just shows you how quickly good team, bad team, involved in a game or not, that's all it takes is one little thing to go the right way and you've got it.
Yep. And I think you saw a lot of that in Tampa's series too. When they beat that series with the Panthers got nasty.
Oh, it did. See, that's one thing I think that favors Tampa a little bit is that they're battle tested for that. Like they're ready to go into a series.
They're fired up to play some playoffs. Yeah.
I still really like Carolina though, just because Carolina has. I don't want to just sit there and say like Carolina has the talent because both teams have talent. It's not like it's a talent question. It's just. Do you want to know what I really think too, to an extent?
Okay.
Tampa can get it from anywhere at any time, which is what makes them dangerous. Like you've got players all over the place that are putting up points. I never question that they have the ability to score heavy in games. There are 2 areas
to start rattling off Tampa Bay Lightning. Braden Point will undoubtedly be like the 4th or 5th name they mention, and he might be a top 10 center in the NHL.
I turned around.
It's insane.
I even said that. I said, listen, I think they have the best goalie in the game. I think they have the best defenseman in the game. And then I think that Braden Point should be higher on the list of forwards. And he's a top 10 forward in the league to me. And he's probably the third guy you mentioned,
right,
among forwards.
By the way, you mentioned best goalie in the league, and I don't disagree with you. Florida Panthers made Andre Vasilevsky look human at times.
That's where I was getting with this. Is like that's probably my biggest concern coming into the series is that
if you're a Lightning fan, you're
he didn't exactly
concerned.
Yes and no, and I'll tell you why. You're a little concerned because you can't gloss over the fact that in this playoff series you had games that were won 5-4, lost 6-5, lost a game 4-1.
There were some fire drills in this series.
But the thing that I take with me at the end is the last one because you won the last game 4-0.
He closed the door.
He really shut the door.
And he really shut the door.
And that's the thing. Like, so I look at that and I go, if that's him getting into the right rhythm now, like if, like you can't deny that the first 3 games of that series were a lot about the physicality and the hitting and the hatred of these two teams. And that's why you got a 6-5 game that probably should have never even been that shouldn't have been a 6-5 game. That was Tampa pretty much dominating for most of it, and then giving up goals in the latter stages.
And Tampa deciding they wanted to win that game, and so they came out and won that game.
Oh, game 6, you mean?
Tampa treated Florida like a preseason a little bit. It's crazy. Like they just added Kucherov back day of the playoffs. Just there you go.
Yeah, I know, and I know people are frustrated with that, but that's the CBA. It's written in that way, and it's allowed.
I know those are the rules. I know that they have operated firmly within the rules. I think those rules need to be changed.
Well, there's a lot of rules that need to be changed.
Right.
We've already discussed goalie interference. We've already discussed
some challenges.
There are plays that have been suspended, haven't been suspended. We need to talk about.
Department of Player Safety really did enjoy throwing around $5,000 fines for cross-checking like Halloween candy through the first 3 or 4 games.
Oh, I even said they made a huge profit off this series. I mean, not really. I mean, I get it. The money goes to foundations and things like that, but you know what I mean. Like the league was collecting some paychecks this series.
Oh yeah, and man, okay, so Tampa, Carolina. What's your matchup here? Also talking about goalies. Sorry, Carolina. That was probably their biggest question mark. And Alex Nedeljkovic has been pretty good.
He's been pretty good. It's still a question mark to me because this is not Nashville anymore. This is Tampa Bay, and this is
right.
Like it's coming at you from all directions. Like game one is going to be.
Stamkos is better than Matt Duchene.
A different type of player, but sure.
Copy pasted all the way down the lineup, though. The Tampa Bay Lightning are just a better team.
Game 1 of the series, which happens to be. It's Sunday evening, which I actually kind of love. I love the 5:00 start today.
I'm Central Time. I'm looking at a 4 p.m. start and a 7 p.m. start. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, for you, that's great.
Beautiful.
So here's where I'm at with this one. I want to see how game 1 goes because if Nedeljkovic looks really good in game 1, then I'm gonna level with it and say, you know what? Then sure, they have a shot like I think they do in the series.
I'm not going to let you get through this show without making definitive choices. I want to pick, damn it.
Oh, no, I'm making a pick on I am making a pick on this. Like, I'm sitting here going, I'm saying game 1 could change my mind really quick.
Okay,
like, I have a pick in mind, and a lot of it is based off of, first of all, it's based off of 2 things. One, it is really, really hard to repeat as a champion.
Yeah.
And it's not, again, this is not Florida anymore, and this is not like going into a team like if you want to try to level Carolina to Nashville in any way, like that they weren't the same level teams. Nashville just really put up a fight like can happen in the playoffs.
I wonder if Nikita Kucherov not putting miles on his body this season helps your repeat effort because he's just not quite as ground down, and you kind of have a lot of guys who miss significant portions of time this year, and you might not be as ground down as your normal returning champion.
It could. I don't know about that. I mean,
right? Because you hear all the time, you win the championship, it's mid-June, you turn around in October, play a full 82-game season, go to the next
I know what you're saying.
That's not really the case this year. It was a 56-game schedule that, a couple of their players hardly played.
Didn't Stamkos end up missing time still, though?
Yeah, he did.
So...
But you know what I mean. Just in general, are they better set up than a lot?
Well, and look, for nothing else, too, it took 3 games, 4 games for Kucherov to take a slash off the back of the leg in a bad spot and like nearly be who knows what that could have done. Like
That was nasty.
that was kind of like, again, like I said with player safety and things like that. And I'm not trying to be like a hey, suspend everyone all the time thing, but that was pretty clearly a I want to try to end your season again.
That was nasty. That was intent to
and it was
injure.
like,
That was
look, and I get it, like,
play.
like they're sitting here going, well, come on, he didn't even hit him that hard. Like, there's no padding there, and
If
it was
that's-
done with intent.
Listen, if
That
that was
was
Tom
legit-
Wilson, I'm screaming for 20 games. And I'm
Right.
not screaming for 20 games because who was it? Was it Anthony Duclair?
Yes.
Right. Because Anthony Duclair doesn't have the same suspension history that Tom Wilson has, so I'm not exactly looking for 20 games. Anthony Duclair should have gotten a couple of games for that. Minimum 2 or 3 in my book. Like, that is pure, clear as day, intent to injure. You are slashing a guy returning from a knee injury on the side of the knee, no pad there. Everyone knows he's there. The NHL doesn't do a good enough job protecting their superstars. This is one of those guys you should be protecting. Anthony Duclair's got to get 3 games if you're me.
Well, I
That's neither here nor there.
You're right. Like they're out of the playoffs anyway.
Yeah.
So
But
I have Carolina in the series. I have Carolina. This is one of the few that I'm set. Like, I sound like a broken record when I talk about some of these because I've been just going.
a lot of them are going to 7.
I have this one in 6.
I was gonna say Carolina in 6 too. I think we've been doing this show together for too long. We're in sync here. I think Carolina's got the tools. Again, if Nedeljkovic wilts under the pressure,
Sure, and that's the big X factor here.
But if
I
that's
do
the
think,
case, can Reimer or Mrazek or somebody else step up and
in fairness to Carolina too, by the way, one other thing about them, they got to get the power play going because they did not have good power play numbers against Nashville, and this is you can't lose the special teams battle here.
Well,
not against Tampa. You
not
can't.
as bad as you can. Like you might not be able to win the special teams battle, but you got to at least keep it competitive. You just can't get your doors blown off.
Right.
Yeah, I think Carolina in 6. They're my pick to win the cup. I've been riding them. I think they're absolutely the play. This is a series that I am very, very excited about watching because I think there's a chance that this is the Carolina Hurricanes coming out party.
Well, and let's put it this way too: if you don't, look, we've said this enough about a lot of stuff when it comes to this team. If Rod Brind'Amour doesn't make you want to run through a brick wall,
oh man!
I mean, I'm sure you saw that video by now. They win in overtime in game 6.
Happy birthday, Dad!
Yeah, and he goes in the locker room and says, and has his parents on the phone. It's his dad's birthday, and he goes. He's an older guy, but he sits and he's got some health issues, so he doesn't really get to do much. He sits there and watches you guys and supports you the whole way, all the time. He's been your biggest fan all year, and you guys just gave him, and he in his way.
I was ready to go fight Ivan Drago. Like
yes,
man, Rod Brind'Amour was fired up, man. He was fired up.
Yeah,
and I can't wait. Man, one of my favorite pictures of all time is him lifting the cup.
Yeah, I know.
You know the picture. It's an iconic shot. He's still got all that fire, man. You could see it in that video.
There were people after watching that video, by the way, the one after game 6 in Nashville, that were literally sitting there saying, like, you don't sign this guy. And look, I know the rumors are out there.
Give the man what he wants.
Right. Give him what he wants. Everything. He wants the coaching staff to stay. Let him do it. Does
he want 10% of the team? Give him 10% of the team. Like, Rod Brind'Amour is the lifeblood of the Carolina Hurricanes at the moment.
He really is.
And you could argue that he has been for 15 years.
There you go.
Here we are. One series left to talk about. And we started with a series that had one game left. And we will end with a series that has one game played. And that would be at time of recording. Again, by the time the show goes up, a couple more games will be up. But the Boston Bruins and the New York Islanders played a game in front of a zoo.
Yes,
in Boston.
I feel like
on Saturday night.
I feel like I have to talk about this as if not as if game 1 hasn't happened, but like what I have to do is I have to talk about, like, I feel like I should just say what I think the prediction was first, and then almost dive into game 1.
Yeah, go for it.
So I have Boston in 7.
Okay. I had Boston, and I was waffling between 5 or 6. I think they're just a better team.
Okay. I don't doubt that. Like,
Right.
I think that Boston wins the series because they are. But I have watched enough. See, this is the hard. I won't say the hard series. This is the easy series to predict and the hard series to predict because they're good teams. They're both very good teams. It's an easy series for me to predict because of the fact that all year long I've watched eight games for each of these teams up close, seen what they have, and could really not be surprised by anything they do.
No.
I've seen them up close. I know, like, I can't tell you how Carolina looks or Tampa Bay looks up close like I normally can.
But these are teams you have covered.
Right. So if there's anything that I know not to do, it's doubt the New York Islanders.
That's fair. I think I mostly picked Boston in 5 or 6. I think I settled on 6 because I don't want to watch any more Islanders hockey. They're just so boring. I would much rather see.
I love it. I love how boring it is because it's that good.
But you know what I love? I love watching Patrice Bergeron pass it to Taylor Hall on the power play. Come on.
So
now.
here's the thing with this series, and this is now we're going to actually tap into game 1 a little bit.
Yeah, please.
You got exactly what you need if you're Boston from the big. Like, this was a game where David Pastrnak said, "I'm going to do whatever I want to."
And man, full building hat trick. Come on, Kevin. Come on.
I have never felt more confident in a guy scoring a goal than I did when he got space before the hat trick goal in the neutral zone. I'm like, oh, here it comes.
We're done.
And he cut to them, and he cut to the middle, and the shot again. It's not off his stick, and I go, he's scoring a goal.
Remember the play a couple years ago where Claude Giroux walks through 5 Tampa Bay Lightning and just decides to score a goal?
See, do you want to know what I'm thinking of actually?
And when Connor McDavid walks Morgan Riley because he just decided he wanted to score a goal.
Oh yeah.
David Pastrnak flipped that switch and he decided he wanted to score a goal. And the fact that he has that gear is absurd.
He's cutting across the middle. You know what I actually think of? I go, this is taking a little bit of a trip back in the time machine. I'm going back to the year that the Winter Classic was in Philly. So I'm going back to the 24/7 series when Peter Laviolette was mic'd up, and turns around and I think Yager got tripped in Montreal, and he's yelling at the official, and he literally yells at the official afterwards, "How is that not a penalty? Because that guy's gonna go score a freaking goal," And like, I'm sitting here, I'm going, I get it now. You see a guy who is as talented as a player like that, making that cut, getting that inside positioning,
that little glint in the eye,
and I'm looking at it. I go, like, thing hadn't even left his stick, and I'm going, he's gonna score. He's gonna score.
As soon as he made the move, I knew he was scoring.
I knew it before he crossed the blue line.
It's insane. And like, there are very few players in the world who have that mode. And the more a player can access that, the better he is. The reason we call Connor McDavid a cheat code is because he can access that whenever he wants.
And yet that's
what we're talking about. Right?
And the biggest difference between the Boston Bruins with David Pastrnak or any of the others you want to throw in there and Edmonton and Connor McDavid is where, you need more around the guy than just himself. Like, it's great that Connor McDavid can be that guy whenever he wants to be. And it's great that Leon Draisaitl can, but who else can?
Right. And specifically, what did Boston do this year at the deadline? You go out and you get Taylor Hall. What does that do? That deepens your entire team. That gives you a second line. That gives you a second power play. That enables your superstars like David Pastrnak to just decide to take over a game because there's more depth behind him if it doesn't work out. Right.
Right.
And
Edmonton
just failing. Edmonton's just failing him so much, and it hurts my feelings as a hockey fan.
Now, in fairness, this
Can we trade him to the Kings for a couple of $1 million bucks.
Oh, I don't know.
That always works out well, right?
Play
in St. Louis for a minute.
The LA Kings will be back in the Stanley Cup final in a year and a half, right?
The LA Kings have to do some work to afford them because they're paying Drew Doughty until 2046.
2023, 30 years later, here we come. And while we're at it, the Montreal Canadiens will win the Stanley Cup.
Oh my God.
I'm joking.
Speaking of winning the Stanley Cup, who do you have here? Boston.
All right, I do want to go. I do want to go back to where I was starting to go with this because, in fairness, what happened in Game 1 is exactly what we keep saying can't keep happening for Boston. Like, it's great. You got David Pastrnak. He had a huge game, and the top line did a lot of good stuff. do not think for a second that there will not be. I said on the last Open Ice Hits that there's no coach in the league better than Barry Trotz at adjusting in game and getting ready. And actually, I think I heard the same sentiment echoed on the broadcast.
Yep. That's true.
That they make the adjustments needed. They're always in a game, and it was very much only toward the end that this game got out of hand. Like, it was really not a game that was out of hand until basically when Pasternak scored that second goal and or the third goal, the second goal of the third period, that you go, well, there's less. There's
right,
four. There's four.
Now.
No, but there's 4 minutes left. That's a dagger. He
Yeah,
just won the He just won the game with a great play because they did not allow the space for the Islanders to work. And then, but like I don't read into Taylor Hall scored an empty net goal. That's great. I don't care that Taylor Hall scored an empty net goal because the fact that it's not a goal at that point in time, it's not a goal at a significant time. The Islanders
that matters.
Well, the Islanders took a penalty at the end, like with 3.5 minutes left in regulation, so they weren't going to have much of a chance beyond that anyway. Like you can start to think about it. If there's 3 minutes left and the Islanders go down, they get the goalie out, they score a goal, now there's 2 minutes left. You can start thinking about it. It's a 1-goal game with 2 minutes left. But, it never even got to that point. When you take a penalty, you don't think like that either, so...
Boston's too good a team to lose that game.
Yeah, I think that's a team that came in and said, we're not losing this game.
Right, and I think they kind of had a similar effect to the Montreal Canadiens did, where you got the full barn, you're not losing the game.
Or better yet, I don't even know if it's that they come into the game and say that. I think they go to the locker room after the second period, tied 2-2, and go, we got to find a way to win this game. We can't lose this game, so we're not going to let it happen.
Right, you're not losing in front of a full house. Absolutely not.
But don't think for a second that a 5-2 margin in game one means that this is that lopsided of a series. It's
absolutely not. Absolutely not. We all know how that works.
So I already gave you my prediction. I said Boston in 7 at the start, but that's where I'm sticking.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with Boston in 5 or 6. Game one kind of leans me towards 5, but I said 6 originally, and I'm absolutely okay to stick with that.
So here's really quick, because we didn't touch on, like, we got to these series and then didn't mention some of the lengths of the series otherwise.
Totally. Yeah.
So this is where I meant when I said I don't feel so bad about getting one wrong, because I had the Islanders not making the second round. I had Pittsburgh in 7. Okay. When I pick a series to go 7 games, that means I can see it going either way, right?
Of course.
Like you're flipping a coin for that final game, and you're expecting everybody else to, you're expecting no matter who it is to win 3 games minimum.
Sure. So you're giving every team a chance.
Right.
Sure.
So when the Islanders won in 6, and to be fair, it's the way the Islanders won the last 2 games kind of made more sense. They didn't necessarily there wasn't a reason that they should have won game 5. It's a bad turnover. You win game 5, and when they won game 5, I went, they're going to close this thing out in game 6 because this is what they do, Game
5 is a backbreaker for Pittsburgh.
It felt like it, yeah. And then and the worst part was that you led 3 times in game 6. You got the first one, you got the third one, and you got the 5th one. You were up 1-0, 2-1, and 3-2.
That's what you get for having Jeff Carter on your roster.
In terms of what? He was one of their best players.
I know he was. I know.
He outscored Crosby in the series.
That's what you get for having Mark Friedman on your roster.
Sure.
Flyers legend Mark Friedman.
That's what you get for having Tristan Jarry as your starting goalie.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And Casey DeSmith was not a good enough backup this year either.
No, but they didn't even have the option. Honestly, I was shocked to even the only reason he played the rest of game 6 was because of that. If they could have turned to Casey DeSmith, they probably would have after the 4th one, to be honest. But
well,
maybe the 3rd one for all I know, but I don't know.
It's crazy. Next time we have a show, 2 weeks from today, we'll be talking about the Final Four, the semifinals, and no matter who we see there, I think it's going to be a good setup, right? We're looking at Final Four, best 4 teams in the league.
Yep.
I certainly won't be disappointed with any of these teams getting through that are currently sitting here. The Jets would probably be the most surprising, but I wouldn't be super shocked if any of these teams wins and finds themselves in the Final Four. And after this series, we're halfway to crowning a Stanley Cup champion.
Yeah. And
we're on our way out of here because that's really all we had to talk about today, right? Not too much in terms of Flyers news.
No, I mean,
I think we talked about mentioning Scott Gordon here, and this feels like a good time to mention Scott Gordon.
I don't really want to get too deep into it. It just sounds like there was from what I understand,
It
his
sounded to me like Scott Gordon felt like he could have some opportunities elsewhere.
I agree. From what I understand, though, there was also things about like how his contract was going to be up. There wasn't much discussion for it. They just decided to mutually part ways, as it said, which I get. I think also what I thought I heard was that the plan all along was for Kerry Huffman to step down as the assistant, so that was already happening too.
Okay.
So then Scott Gordon steps down. You can kind of create this whole new atmosphere in the minor leagues with whatever you go with.
To change the whole room.
The rumor, in case anybody hasn't seen it by now, which I mean, we're going on a couple weeks of this by this point. So the rumor was, and it was from Tony Androkidis of InsideAHLHockey.com.
If you're going to get a Phantom scoop, that's where you get it from.
Yeah, typically. So the story was that Ian LaPerriere is the front runner to take over that head coaching job. There's also that report also cited that Terry Murray may return to the Phantoms bench as an assistant, which
disappointed but not surprised. We've talked about the loyalty of this franchise quite a lot.
Listen, I don't care about it from a minor league standpoint. The only thing I don't like about it is that it opens up the possibility that if the Phantoms do well and the Flyers do not, and you make a coaching change, are you setting yourself up for Ian LaPerriere to be the head coach of this team, which I don't see how that's going to work.
Let's look at some recent Flyers head coaches in the last 20 years or so.
Oh,
you tell me what they all have in common. Bill Barber, John Stevens, Craig Berube. What do they all have in common? Former players? What's that?
Former players.
Organizational ties?
Organizational ties is probably more specific.
Came up through the coaching ranks, generally speaking, with the team.
I mean, yeah, if you really want to,
I've seen the pattern before.
If you really want to go there, Terry Murray was also the head coach of the Flyers way back when too.
Well, there we go. It turns out the Flyers are
Terry Murray
loyal.
Terry Murray has not only coached the Flyers, but then coached the Phantoms within the last he was the first head coach of the Lehigh Valley Phantoms when they made the move.
Okay,
and that lasted for like a year, and then Scott Gordon came in.
Okay.
And the only time that the Phantoms have had a different head coach is in that half year that Gordon jumped to the Flyers after they fired Dave Haxtell. And
you know what? I think he did a perfectly serviceable job with what he had.
He did. And not only that,
and he had a team playing out the string.
Let's put it this way. Scott Gordon's got an AHL job if he wants it, because anybody out there would be crazy not to hire him. I think he's got an NHL assistant job if he wants it to an extent. I think if somebody was willing to go there, then go for it.
I think he could do some great things for a team behind their bench.
I think. Do you want to know a place that I think wouldn't be a bad fit for him, and it's not a specific location yet?
Okay.
You tell me the team that decides to hire Rick Tocchet, and I'll tell you that there's a fit on that bench.
Okay. I don't think that's a terrible idea at all. Now.
I
don't know if Rick Tocchet might have a hard time finding a job, just kind of based on the current head coaching market. But
there's teams out there that exist. Like do you know? Okay, do you want me to put a city on where I think Scott Gordon could end up? It's unfortunate, but I could see it happening. I think Buffalo.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's as the head coach, as an assistant, but I could see Buffalo.
Oh yeah, but that would actually require the Pagulas to pay somebody, so it's probably not going to happen.
What do you mean, for him to be head coach?
Well, just to pay somebody, period. That would just requare them spending more money.
But they don't have a head coach at the moment, so that's part of it. But that's look, you're getting.
They're certainly not hiring any of the top tier names. They're not hiring Torts.
Do you think anybody is?
Yeah.
It's not going to be Seattle. If nothing else, Seattle's going to probably come down to, well, I don't want to say it's going to come down to, because there's a lot of stuff. Nobody, you know what's interesting actually to this point, truthfully? There's a lot of teams that don't have coaches, and I guess it's because the season just ended technically 2.5 weeks ago.
Right.
That we're thinking this way, but that nobody's hired somebody yet, because there are teams that hire a week after the season's over. Like, they already know where they're going when they let the one guy go and they interview a guy twice and they say, yeah, you're in.
Well,
right?
I think this year was different because you had some teams who made the playoffs where if they lose in the first round, coaches may become available.
I guess that's fair. I don't know for
coaching jobs may become available.
You mean like the Montreal Canadiens, for example?
The Montreal Canadiens, for example. Yeah. I don't necessarily know if he's getting fired, but I think the Pittsburgh Penguins job
I still think he saved his job this year because they overachieved quite possibly. They won a division in a year that they shouldn't have.
You're probably right, but losing in the first round still disappointing.
Let's put it this way. I mean, being that I have
is Sheldon Keefe's job in trouble if the Leafs lose?
I don't think it is.
I don't think you're terribly far off the conversation, especially with how
I don't think they're gonna. I don't think Toronto's gonna look and say, "Oh, the coach is the problem."
I think you're gonna have a lot of issues. Well, they run into a similar issue as the Flyers. Well, if the coach isn't the problem, how do you move the players?
True.
So at some point, you just got to make it work. But
so those teams, fine. I think Winnipeg's got their coach. That's not changing.
Edmonton.
Yeah, there's one. I'll give you that one.
You can fire him.
I don't know that. I don't know for sure it's going to happen, but I think the conversation is going to be had. Yes, so that's a fair one. Who else is left that we had?
Is there a job available in Dallas, or is Rick Bowness coming back?
I still think they like Rick Bowness. I think
we talked about Arizona. Tockett's out. Is Berube out in St. Louis? Probably not. No. Okay. Either way, there's some jobs out there.
Berube's not out in St. Louis because of the fact that I think that internally that's a team that realizes how outmatched they were anyway in that series, for one, and two, they didn't have their leading scorer because David Perron spent the entire series on the COVID list.
Right.
Defensively, they kept dropping like flies because of big hits and physical play and things they did not like. You know, it wasn't a good series. It just and Jordan Binnington kind of took a slight step back this year, to be honest with you. And that is what it is. Tampa, let's look. Tampa just beat Florida. Quenneville's not going anywhere. Carolina just beat Nashville. I think Nashville, to an extent, overachieved a little bit. So I think Hines is staying there.
Okay.
And everybody else. I mean, I don't think that Peter Laviolette's getting fired for losing a series in 5 games to Boston. And again, I think in Pittsburgh, Mike Sullivan probably saved his job more likely than not with the way things went. So the ones that are available now, probably, I mean, with the exception of, like you said, does Edmonton have a conversation? Does Montreal have a conversation? And I think a little bit more out there than that, but does Toronto have a conversation?
I was gonna say, don't sleep on that Toronto pick.
No. But I think among everybody who's left it going, like even going against, like, there's too many teams that have good to great code. Like who are you in Florida to fire Joel Quenneville after 2 years?
Okay, but are you ready?
It's gonna be spicy.
Oh, it's gonna be spicy.
My mouth is burning.
Torts to Toronto.
Oh, jeez.
Boom! Oh, it would be so much fun. All right, well, listen. If Toronto manages to lose Game 7 on Monday night, we might have a possibility of that happening. Until then, follow us on Twitter at YWT Podcast to keep up with the show. You can find the show everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, Podbean, iTunes, Google Podcasts, sportstalkphilly.com. You can find Kevin at Kevin_Durso, at Flyerdelphia during the season mostly. 97.3 ESPN.
Not so much.
Not so much there. But Broads Media.
Not so much recently, I was going to say.
You're on the Broads Media YouTube channel featuring open ice hits. Anything else going on for you?
No, waiting for the next open ice hits to be recorded, because our best laid plans were do it like somewhere into Monday. I honestly thought we were going to record tonight. Okay. And then set it up for Monday morning, because there wasn't any games on when we were talking about. And then they threw 2 more on us, and now it's like we're probably just stuck waiting until Tuesday morning to record one and then get it out on Tuesday. Because,
well, there we go.
And I don't love it because of the fact that we're stuck between series now.
It's a little muddy, yeah.
And I mean, look, I guess to an extent it works out, because then yes, that'll be the technical end date of the first round. Right. The first round's going to end on Monday night, but by the time we get there, you're going to have 3
series are going to be half over already.
Right, possibly. I mean, how many wins? Will Boston have 2 wins already to go into the?
I certainly think.
I think the other series are only going to have 1 game, at least. Okay. But
either way, check with Kevin on Twitter at Kevin_Durso one more time. Follow the show at YWT Podcast, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. Until then, happy Memorial Day, and we'll see you later.